Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Good evening. Where are you? How's everybody doing today? Today is the 7th of December, a day that shall live in infamy here at Ready Set Crypto. Today's trade school I'm going to be doing with you guys is on some requests that I got this morning. So if anybody's out there, let me make sure that everything is going okay, that you can see me and hear me all right. Today's topic is about maximizing your performance, and I think that you'll recognize some of the topics as we get through them today. All right, so here was a question that was posted this morning. Could you do a trade school session about the essential things we need to know or use in technical analysis to be profitable traders so that we're not the part of the majority group, which I typically call the herd, right? So I know you talk about that, but it would be nice to have essentials in one trading school session. Lately, I'm thinking, and I'm paraphrasing here, I'm kind of reading into the question, will I be able to execute what I know when the market goes positive, or will my psychology beat me? I think you know the answer to that right now. So how can I or we know when we are good? Actually, that's a really, really important question, and it's terrific self-awareness for you to understand those issues, because this is what beats the majority of traders that are out there. Well, to be quite honest, most of them don't even know that this exists right now. Most of them don't even know that about some of the things that we're going to talk about here. Understand that where you sit today, if you're an amateur retail investor, and don't take that as a negative, don't take that as a negative connotation. If you're not doing this professionally, if you're not earning an income from it, then you're an amateur retail investor. There's no shame in that. But you will be predisposed to acting along with the investing herd. That's just something that's going to be happening to you right now. All right, it's just part of nature for reasons that we'll talk about, or we have talked about before. So unless you have experience with this, and if you do, then you will do what you always do to learn or seek counsel, which is you will look to others for an answer. So you're going to Google things, you're going to look at Twitter feeds, you're going to watch YouTube videos, you're going to watch TV shows, anything like this. And we actually see this type of discussion on a daily basis in the Discord room. Hey, is this the bottom? Hey, where do you think the price will be in a month? Hey, when is crypto going to rally? So these are all very, everybody wants to know the answer to these kind of things, but it's the fact that we're looking for others to provide. It's almost like somebody else knows the answer to this and they're just withholding the answer to this. Newsflash, nobody knows. The problem is that I could go out in the future and I could come back and say, hey, guess what, guys? I just came from the future and I know exactly where the bottom is. And you would be unable to take that entry. You would say, okay, well, I'll just watch and see. So I could give you 100% clarity to an answer like that. And you would still say, well, I'll wait until it feels good because it just doesn't feel good right now. I'll trust you when it feels good. And that tells you something about it. Markets move in very illogical, irrational ways because it's comprised of humans that think irrationally. Think of a market as this collective organism that's out there. The market is not an inanimate object. It actually is comprised of millions and millions of individuals that all are quite irrational. And that's why markets are irrational by themselves. If you struggle to try to understand why it's moving in a certain direction, it is because it is irrational, because humans are irrational. Maybe the first time you've heard that. The human mind has also been programmed through society to think of risk as being bad. We don't like risk, right? Usually if we take a risk, if it doesn't pan out, it hurts, right? If you try to dart through the traffic, it hurts. If you try to beat that train across the crossing, if you're wrong, that hurts. So risk, normally, if it doesn't pan out, it hurts. Investors hate risk and want no part of it. It's true. So the problem is that without the risk, there is no reward. No risk, no reward, nothing. So we seek the riskless solution, but that's not what we really want. Actually, if you think about that equation, it applies towards everything. People, carp about, well, how come they get paid so much? Well, typically a position where you get paid more is one where you're taking more risk, right? Performance risk. So we should be looking for a situation where the risk is asymmetric, where I take a little bit of risk and I have potentially a lot of reward. So that's what's called asymmetric risk. Okay. I think people have forgotten that I'm on today, so I'm going to go out in the Discord room and say, we are broadcasting. Okay, there we go. See if anybody else shows up here. So we don't want to take risk completely out of the equation, believe it or not. Nope, looks like there we go. Hold on a second. We have lost broadcast. We want to make sure that we're good here. Okay, yeah, there we go. So we should be looking for, so remember this is that we should be looking for a situation where the risk is asymmetric at all times. We don't talk about this a whole lot. A lot of times we're just looking for a decent setup, but most of the time we're looking for asymmetric setups. So back to the question at hand here. The essential things we need to know, or this is back to the original question that was in Discord. What are the essential things we need to know or use in technical analysis to be profitable traders so that we're not part of the majority group? Okay. And you might be surprised to understand that it's actually very simple. So it's not a combination, like, oh, you need to know Andrew's pitchfork, or, look, if you don't know the Ichimoku cloud, you're not going to be profitable. Don't let people talk you into, guilting you into learning a specific indicator. Yeah, that by itself is not going to do anything, right? So the essential things we need to know or use in technical analysis to be profitable so that we're not part of the majority group. Well, the very fact that you're asking that question means that, and this is the way I'm interpreting it, is that maybe there's something in the charts that are preventing you from being that. I think it's more of a mindset than anything else. It's not the charts, it's a mindset. It's the belief in what the charts are showing you. That is the important thing, not the charts themselves. So what will the herd do? And this will make sense in a minute. What will the herd do? They will buy the dip when others tell them to do so. Hey, dude, you got to buy the dip. You got to hodl. You got to buy the dip. You got to hodl. Boom, 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 boom. 1, 2, 1, 2. All the time in every board, everywhere. Buy the dip, hodl. Okay. Even though prices are going lower. Oh, your dollar cost averaging. That's great. What if it goes to 0? So they will buy when they claim, well, it can't go any lower, can it? This has to be the low. Surprise. What is low can go lower. And a lot of people are finding that out right now. So they will attempt to catch that falling knife, and they will look to the crowd to tell them when and where it will bottom. If you're asking other people for where the bottom is going to be, then unfortunately you're part of the herd. You're part of that equation because everybody's seeking out there, like everybody's looking for certainty. And it's tough. This is one of the toughest things to go through in trading, is when things aren't really going your way and you don't know what to do because you haven't been through this before. And so you're asking others, like, what should we do? And the first thing you want to know is, what's the future? And guess what? Nobody knows the future. So you got to reframe the question around what's going on. So these people will watch TV shows, they'll watch YouTube videos, they'll follow Twitter feeds with the sole purpose of learning what others feel about where the bottom will be. And feel is the operative word there. They will get alternately hopeful on every green candle and depressed when the red candles show up again. Yeah. Okay. So eventually they'll get fatigued by the collective drama and sell out at the very bottom when they feel being the operative word there again, that it is hopeless. So this is how the herd is making decisions right now. So if there's anything in here that you recognize, and everybody should recognize everything in here, because this is how you all start. This is how everybody starts. Everybody goes through this cycle until you figure out, hey, this doesn't work so well. This technique of sort of going by your gut or trading via Twitter or trading via the collective feeling that's out there, this does not work too well. It's almost like we're making the exact wrong decision at the exact wrong time. And this is what I always say, is that the herd will get faded. The herd, when everybody sees the same thing, normally the opposite occurs. So the herd will do it wrong every single time, without exception, every single time. So the herd will also miss out on the eventual relief rally. So eventually when this thing bounces and then discovers a little bit of a bid and starts going higher, they'll miss out on it because they won't believe in it. They've already sold out and they're like, well, I'm just going to sit back and wait. Now, all of a sudden they're patient, right? Which is completely the opposite. When you should be aggressive because the trend is going higher, all of a sudden it doesn't feel right because you're anchoring on your previous decision to sell out. So you're like, well, I don't want to appear stupid for selling out at the bottom, so I'm going to wait on this because I'm anchored to my previous decision. This is the way the human mind operates. I'm telling you guys, we're all irrational. So the herd will call it a sucker's rally. Oh, this is a sucker's rally. You're going to get trapped in a sucker's rally. And the first few of these will be a sucker rally. The first few bounces off of the bottom, wherever the bottom ends up being, will be a sucker's rally. Almost certainly that nobody's going to believe in it. And it goes up and then it goes back down again. And people say, see, I told you. And then eventually the eventual rally comes along and everybody's like, well, I'm not touching that. For the most part, herd investors that wash out at the bottom will not return until prices rally significantly. So another thing that most herd investors, if they wash out at the bottom, what impetus do they have to even pay attention at all? They don't. You'll see them off on something else. So, they'll be off on some Pinterest kick or whatever. You don't know. They'll be chasing the next big thing, wherever that is. And usually at the top, another bubble that feels safe. So let's get back to the question. So I've told you guys how not to do it, how not to emulate the herd when you're going through this. So how should you do it? What are the essential things that we need to know or use in technical analysis to be profitable traders so that we're not part of the majority group? Okay. Back to the same question. How about this? How about we do this? How about we wait on the larger time frame trends to reverse into uptrends? Okay. I mean, the solution is incredibly obvious, but it forces you to become patient. It forces you to wait for the trade to come to you. And as a result of that, a lot of people don't like that. They're like, but I have to do something. I have to do something right now. Can't I just buy the dip? Not if it keeps on going lower. You won't be happy about that. You're going to be averaging down, losers average down. You'll eventually, the very bottom entry might be good, but the rest of them were so high that it's going to take you so long for the thing to recover. Again, it's going to fatigue you. It's very corrosive to sit through a position that just drips every day. So waiting on the larger time frame trends to reverse and start actually printing green candles is going to require you to remain patient or to adopt some different skills using futures or something like that to be able to take the trade to the downside. You can bet that all of the social commentary, all the social media will be trumpeting negativity at the bottom 24/7. When the bottom comes along, it's going to feel awful. It's going to feel awful. Buying at the bottom does not feel safe, even if the trend reverses, because people have what? They have recency bias. They put more weight into what has just happened than they do for what's happening today. And quite honestly, I've been watching recency bias myself. We had the financial crash 10 years ago, right? 2008, market just, the overall equities market, just everything around the world just fell to pieces. And this is why Satoshi Nakamoto said, well, this is ridiculous. This is lunacy, for everything to be connected like this. Why don't we come up with an independent system that doesn't depend on that? Okay, brilliant. So here we are 10 years later, right? But every red candle over the last 10 years that we've seen, everybody's like, here it comes again. Here it comes again. Here comes the next crash. Here comes the next People have been looking over their shoulder for the last 10 years. And before that, when we had a crash in 1987, people were looking over their shoulder. Skepticism and negativity tends to drive markets higher. Okay, so this is part 2 of the question. Lately, I'm thinking, will I be able to execute what I know when the market... Let me try this again. Lately, I'm thinking, will I be able to execute what I know when the market goes positive, or will my psychology beat me? Again, if you're asking that question, if you're not sure of that, then you know what the answer is going to be. So how can I or we know when we are good? So you're seeking certainty. You're seeking certainty. You're not sure. This is kind of like soldiers that go to battle for the first time. You don't know if you're going to just turn white and hug the ground when the bullets start to fly. So you're seeking certainty. Will I be able to do it when the moment happens? So don't seek certainty by itself. Doing so will subconsciously put you back in the herd again. Again, if you seek certainty just for the outcome, right back in line you go. Back of the line, right? So determine ahead of time what your criteria for investing is, what you believe to be an uptrend again. So what's an uptrend? Define what an uptrend is. So it's a series of higher highs and higher lows. Now, what time frame are you going to do this on? You're going to wait for a weekly uptrend? You're going to wait for a daily uptrend? What time frame are you going to wait for? You can also use something like the trend trading class. The trend trading class is very criteria specific for trying to get you in on uptrends. So again, quite clear about this in the class is that the beginning of that uptrend may be false. Maybe false, maybe false. 65% of the time it might be false, and all of a sudden you get one shot to get on the real one, and away you go. Simply follow your plan irrespective of what or how you feel. Easier said than done, right? It's easy for me to just spout this stuff, but this is something that it's taken me quite some time to learn. And this is why, I'm never going to sit there and say, hey, buy this class over the weekend and by Monday you're going to be making profits. No, it's not how it works. You have to train your subconscious mind to accept this class or this material. This is why I'm always pounding on the table for you to internalize your own strategy. Don't just follow somebody else's stuff. Make it yours. Only then will you trust it. And then, so going back to this question, I'm thinking, will I be able to execute on what I know when the market goes positive? That tells me that you don't have a system yet. And I'm not picking on this one individual because this one question has been asked hundreds of times in various different ways. So you've got to know your own system like the back of your hand, and only then will you trust it. And coincidentally, once you trust the system, then and only then can you become profitable with it. So effective investing is not for everyone. I do need to say this because there are people that are out there that are unable to get past what they feel. If you cannot separate what you feel from making a decision, then this is probably not the venture for you. If you can't get past that, if you have to have that feeling involved in every decision, and trust me, this is really tough to separate that from, because your feeling is driven by your subconscious mind, and your subconscious mind is many, many times more powerful than your conscious mind. You cannot force yourself to be disciplined. right? You can't just say, well, I'm going to start losing weight today. How does that work? Okay, maybe you sign up for a health club on January 1st. By the 10th of January, you stop going, oh, I'm not feeling that good today. And then all of a sudden you give yourself permission not to show up again. You know how it works. You can't force discipline like that. It has to come from within. So if what you feel can't be purged from your decision process, this is going to be tougher on you than it should be. It's going to take you longer before you're able to get to the point of saying, okay, I got A, B, and C. That means I'm supposed to go along here. Boy, this feels bad, but how about if I do this? How about if I use a really, really small piece of capital for this trade? So therefore, even though this feels terrible to me, this feels like absolute suicide, I'm going to write off this money. If I keep it small enough, then I'm not going to care that much. How about we do something like that? So this is how you get your feelings out of the trade, is trade small. So this keeps coming back to the same stuff again and again, doesn't it? Identify your exits before you enter. Trade no more than 2% of your account capital per position. So don't put that much at risk. In fact, typically a lot less than 2% per position will be good to begin with. Okay, any questions? I do have another point that I wanted to go over today, but I wanted to pause here before I go any further to see if there's anything that you guys wanted to bring up or ask about that. So I'll just take a quick pause and see what you guys got. I just came back from floating today. So I signed up for this immersion float, which is literally like, this place is a quarter mile away from me. It's incredible. They just opened up. And so what you do is you sit in this pod with warm water and they shut the lights off and everything like that. And you just sit there and float. Wow. It's wild. I went down really hard, so I'm still kind of waking up right now. Tyke, do you ever get to a place in your trading where your gut gives you the right decisions? Yeah, you know what's funny about that? It's funny you ask that question, because after a while, what you do is okay, so think about this for a second, and I wish I had some way to draw this out there, but I'm just going to try to talk with my hands and make sense here. But that's actually a really good question, because there is some validity to that. Because a master trader will almost operate exclusively from a position of an intuition. In other words, everything is completely gone into the right brain or the subconscious mind, and there's another way to explain this is, have you ever known somebody that knows something so well and is such a master at it that they find it they're almost unable to explain themselves in any rational terms. And you get to that point and it's like, oh, okay, so you've really gone deep, and words fail you because just simple words and simple phrases lack the depth to be able to explain to somebody how to do something. So a true master trader can certainly get to that level where they've done something so many times that they've actually reverse trained themselves. When they see something that a normal person would be fearful of, all of a sudden they get, joy, because they've trained themselves so thoroughly in this. It's like, oh, look at that. Look at the fear in this. This is awesome. I want to sell right into that. And this is something, I had learned to do when I see markets diving like that. There's specific option trades that I take that are quite contrarian, and they're quite the opposite of that. And it did take a number of years before I got over the rational response and tried to teach myself the other side of that. And so there is a lot behind your question. I'm probably not expressing it in a very lucid manner here. Oh, that's the schnauzer. You guys can hear that? He's our doorbell. Okay, so let me know if there's anything else. I'm going to motor on to the next topic here. And if there's anything else that comes up, just hit me at the end of questions. So another question that came in through Discord today. So Discord's been a gold mine here, and that's what this is for. Just wondering, how do you decide when to make time to do the necessary things like take exercise, eat, sleep, etc.? And so somebody was dogpiling on that one and saying, I concur. What about a class about time management? Well, okay. I'm really not that good of an efficient time manager in my day. I guess this is partly, my decision, and this is something that I've done since I've started working from home or just kind of, running my own business, is that it's kind of nice that I don't have somebody else telling me what to do at any one given time. And, over the years, I've paired up with different organizations where I would be on the air at a certain time, a certain day, those kind of things, and, providing this thing. And boy, that was just like having a job again. So I'm back to kind of, working with Mav and doing my own thing. And so I kind of do enjoy not having a gun to my head. And so I do fight back a little bit about having a totally rigid system. I mean, that's one of the things that everybody tells you. It's like, map out your day, know exactly when you're going to wake up, know exactly when you're going to be working on everything, and then chunk everything down to 5-minute intervals. And it's like, oh my God, I think I'd go crazy if I had to do that all day. Like, I can't talk on the phone right now. I have to go do this. And there is that to some extent, but I fight back against that a little bit, because what you find is that you never know when you're going to be inspired by something. And I do actually kind of like watching markets. I watch markets all day long and I enjoy that. And I realize that it's a tremendous waste of time most of the time if I'm not actually trading or not managing a trade. If I'm just sitting there watching a market and I'm mentally like, okay, here's what's going to happen next, and then this is what I would do. And sometimes I'll trade it, sometimes not. Sometimes I'll just sit there and watch it. So I'm not particularly good with that. That's probably something that I should work on and say, well, look, I'm only going to day trade during these parts of the day, and the rest of the time I'm going to work on other things, and I would probably be a lot more productive. But I do fight back against that. So everything that I talk about from here on in, take it with a grain of salt that I'm not a time efficiency expert. So I'm just going to share with you guys, what I do and some of the things that I'm believing in. And I am a working, what's the expression there? Working product. I can't even think of the expression right now, but I'm changing as we speak right now. I'm always kind of a little bit of a chameleon. Okay. So over the past couple of years, I've been letting others get into my head via podcasts. Work in progress. That's what the expression is. Work in progress. I don't know. I couldn't remember that one, but I'm constantly a work in progress. I'm always trying to find a different way to do things. Okay. So I let selected people get into my head via podcasts. So if you've never gotten into podcasts, it can be addictive, because for those of you that grew up listening to radio and things like that, podcasts have gotten to be more and more and more popular, because it's like, you think about it, it's like, hey, we got videos and we've got, streaming TV and we've got all these video sources, and it's like, well, that's great, but you can't do anything else while you're watching that. It arrests your attention, and all of a sudden your productivity goes to zero. But what I love to do is I love to go for, I'm going to go for a walk or something like that for a couple of miles. And I strap on these headphones, which are Bluetooth, and, put something on the mobile phone, and away I go. Podcast. That's what I do. So I do a lot of reading on performance topics as well, too. And I tend to bias towards, and I know this sounds, G.I. Joe kind of stuff, but I tend to bias towards the special forces in the military, because these are people, the very fact that they're in special forces means that they had to be taught how to get rid of their mental limitations, which is what trading is all about. Trading is all about getting rid of your inherent limitations, not only of performance, not only of risk and everything else like that. So these guys do it for a living, and I'm fascinated by what these guys do and how they train and how they get over their own limitations. So I study them all the time. So it doesn't matter who you are or what your day is like. What I've learned is that there's two priorities that you must follow. Work in progress. There we go. Number one, and this is a little bit unusual, probably not something you expected me to talk about, but if you're not getting enough sleep, and this is only something that I've learned about over the last year, you will not perform well as a rational human being. I mean, before this, it's like, it used to be sort of like this, macho thing, like, oh, I don't get any sleep. I only get like 2 hours of sleep, like, look at me. And no, that's really actually horrible. There's the type of sleep that you get, and I'm not an expert at this, guys, but the type of sleep that you get, whether you go really in a, full REM and all that stuff, that makes a big difference. So if you're getting woken up every 5 minutes over a period of 8 hours, that's still going to be lousy sleep. But let's just agree on the fact that if you're not getting enough decent sleep, you will not perform well as a rational human being. So when we sleep, believe it or not, this is when the majority of weight loss occurs. So weigh yourself tonight before you go to bed, and then weigh yourself in the morning. That's when most of your weight loss will occur. If you're sleeping well, if you're going into deep sleep, this is when the weight loss will occur. And this is also when the brain removes metabolic waste. Don't ask me what metabolic waste is. I'm not here to learn those kind of things. So if you have bad sleep, everything else suffers. Number two, if you aren't physically active, if you're a couch potato, the problem with trading is that we sit all day. We sit all day long, and it's extremely unhealthy for us. They're saying sitting is the new smoking, right? So every other system in your body, including your brain, will slow down, and you won't be able to perform very well. So if you're not physically active, and again, this is something where I've taken this to the next level just this year. So I used to road bike 3 or 4 times a week when I lived in a little bit more rural setting, where I had these great roads that were literally right outside my door, and I could be climbing hills in 5 minutes, and very little traffic. And now I'm in more of a city environment, and man, you take your life in your hands when you go on the road. So it's like I'm on sidewalks and, planned urban bike paths and boring stuff like that now. And it's really tough to get out. I mean, when it takes you 5 minutes just to get across the street, just to get somewhere, it takes all the fun out of it. So I'm not getting the bike moves that I used to. And also being in this climate that I live in right now, 6 months of the year, you really can't ride outside. So some other prodding from people that are in my head convinced me to start a morning fitness routine. So I drive down to a gym, and they beat the hell out of me 3 times a week. So this is a managed fitness plan. This is not, going down to Planet Fitness and walking up to a machine and doing that a couple of times and saying, oh, yeah, I feel great. That doesn't work. And that's what I used to do. And I think people join fitness clubs like that thinking that they're doing themselves a favor, and it's not. It's just a waste of money. It's a waste of time if you don't know what you're doing, if you're using the wrong form. And so I've been doing this now for about 2 months, and man, big change, right? So I'm literally sore every single day. Every time you guys see me, I am in pain, right? But pain is weakness leaving the body. But think about this. I sleep through the night like a baby now. I no longer take naps in the afternoon. Like, I can go into the evening without getting really tired. But guess what? When I get to that evening point, like when it's bedtime, boom, I'm down. I'm out hard. The whole system feeds on itself. So these are just some of the things that I'm doing. It's probably not what you're expecting me to say, but talking about sleeping and working out, look, these are all things that we know that we're supposed to do, but I'm trying to bring a trading angle to this, is that it makes a huge difference. And I've kind of poked around and played around with this the last few years, and I've been working from home now since 2005. And so I've been, I have a lot of freedom. I can do pretty much anything that I want to during the day. And I haven't always made the best choices for this. So trying to make making the right choices makes a big difference. I guess that's what I'll say here. So you got to go to bed physically tired. You got to get to the point where you're just like, you're stumbling upstairs to crawl into bed, and boom, as soon as you go to bed, you're asleep. You'll fall asleep faster. You'll sleep more deeply. Everything takes care of itself. So do not do this. Do not iPad yourself to sleep. There's too much blue light there, and it sends signals to your brain like, don't fall asleep yet. And it just interrupts your sleep patterns. It's a bad thing to do. The light confuses you, right? Again, this is not my expertise. I've just read a lot about this, that this is a really, really horrible thing to do. I think some of the other devices that are out there with more amber light, less blue light, more amber light, or just no light at all, or just a book, right? Just a book. There's nothing wrong with reading a paper book to put yourself to sleep if you are not already. But, again, this is where, I'll maybe read for 30 minutes and knock myself out. So I have just a couple of suggested resources that allow into my head these days. This is just a couple of them. There's others that are out there too, but I could probably inhale everything that these guys put out and be wanting more. One of them is James Clear, who I've been talking about quite a bit over the last few months. And like I mentioned, I had lunch with James last summer, and he pretty much guilted me into doing the weight training. And so I have him to thank for that. The guy is like, he's 6'4". He's built like an oak tree. It's like you could like push him and he wouldn't move. I mean, seriously. So sign up for his blog articles. So you'll get like 1 or 2 emails a week. They're not spammy at all. They're really, really good. You'd be amazed. This is some of the best information that you'll ever get for free in your life. The guy's focus is on improving your habits and routines and making yourself more effective. It's like how to live a better life, and you get these emails in your inbox, and it's like they're always interesting. They're always extremely well written, and they're always, they've got footnotes in them, sources and everything like that. I mean, the guy is a genius. So he believes that all discipline comes from within, and it starts with regular physical activity. Again, he guilted me into doing the weight training stuff, and so he'll go back to that. Small changes repeated daily lead to much bigger dramatic changes in lifestyle. So if you want to start something, and Seth Godin calls it the dip, because you see this magnificent hill that you want to climb, and you start towards it, and all of a sudden, the motivation runs away. Motivation does not last. So you get into what's called the dip, right at the base of that big hill. All of a sudden it's like, oh, this is hard. Do I really want this? And that's where you run into this. So what people do is they typically bite off way too much at the very beginning. If they want to lose weight, all of a sudden they're just day one, they're killing themselves. And they go hurt themselves, and that's no way to lose weight or to get into shape is if you hurt yourself. So small, repeated daily changes. So James can teach you a lot more about that. Search on YouTube for he's got some excellent TED Talks, presentations. If you just search on James Clear, he's been on CBS 3 times, I think at least, and each one of those are very good. And also he just came out with a book in October called Atomic Habits, which I think some of you have already gotten. And it's a very good book. So that's James Clear. So James Clear is going to teach you how to have better habits, how to use your day in a much more effective manner. And you'll thank me for this later, I think. The second guy that I allow into my head is Jocko Willink. And this is through the Jocko podcast is much of what I get from this. So this is a podcast that I download onto my phone and just go walking and just listen to this guy ruminate on life and just apply lessons from things that are out there. So this is, again, former Special Forces Navy SEAL commander that served in Iraq and ran 2 platoons out there. So for those of you that have ever watched, look, let's leave the politics out of this, but if you've watched American Sniper with Chris Kyle was in his platoons, those kind of things. So this guy was right in the thick of it. He has an unusual ability to break down seemingly complex issues of life into simple responses. You listen to this guy and it's like all of the noise that we live through in life, all of the little political squabbles that we get into with other people, and you just listen to this guy and you're like, God, why can't I respond like him? It's like he breaks it down and it's so simple. And again, this is where I'm marrying 2 different things here. I'm marrying the James Clear because what I'm doing is I'm listening to this guy a little bit at a time and I'm adapting some of his responses and some of his techniques towards what I do. And I'm inhaling just little bits of it through podcasts every day. And eventually, if you do enough of the same thing, you end up, emulating this. So it all stems from his mind in terms of extreme ownership. So this guy is like, he's the ultimate in saying, hey, look, it was my fault. I did this wrong. I'll take ownership for it. It'll never happen again. He wrote a book called Extreme Ownership. And that's one of the things that he preaches within. So he consults to Fortune 500 companies, he and his partner. And one of the things that he has to teach people about, and it's surprising that we have to teach people this, but here's grown adults that are pointing fingers all over the place and blaming everybody else and acting like a bunch of kindergartners. And he's saying, no, you got to take extreme ownership. You got to say, no, it's on me. I'm going to fix this first. And if everybody did that, things would be a lot easier. And you as a trader also need to practice extreme ownership instead of blaming the market. Yeah, there's Jocko. Instead of blaming the market, you have to take it on yourself. You are responsible for your own results. And if your results are not what you want, then take ownership for that. And if you want to take ownership for that, then get more sleep. Work out a little bit. Be in better shape. Be more mentally aware of what's going on. Okay? He is a very subtle motivator. Very subtle. Not what you expect. You'd expect this guy to get up there and bark like Gunnery Sergeant Hartman at you to, clean up your rack and things like that. No, it's not like that at all. He's very soft-spoken, but you can tell that he walks softly and carries a big stick. He encourages people to get off the couch and get some. So all the time, he's encouraging people, if you want to learn to do something, if you want to learn to get in shape, then get off the couch right now. Begin now. There's none of this getting ready to get ready kind of stuff. Begin right now. He helps you break down the resistance in your mind. Again, I think this is something that he does a really good job at. This guy's not for everybody. I will say that right off the bat. So some of you might listen to him and say, what is this guy on? But for those of you that are receptive to his message, he's awesome. He's got several books that are out now. He's very prolific. He has a great TED Talk on YouTube about extreme ownership. And I recommend before you judge this guy, find that TED Talk out on YouTube, and I think you'll be impressed. And literally hundreds of podcast episodes. And what I've started to do is I went back to the very beginning from number 1, and I'm now back up to like number 30 or something like that. And just working my way through there, And it's an adventure. Okay. So human performance is all based on how you're able to break the bonds of your own self-limiting beliefs. That's the problem. We all have these self-limiting beliefs. We all think, well, I'm not smart enough, or, I'm probably going to lose, or I don't like this risk, or, look, and I say this all the time, we come out of the factory completely programmed 180 degrees out of where we need to be to effectively trade. And we've got to switch that around. We've got to start a little bit at a time. And it begins with the same things that I always talk about, like put together a business plan. Why a business plan? because you need to teach your mind that you're going to take this stuff seriously. And unless you treat this like a business, it's just going to be another fun hobby, you know, like, hey, let's gamble, you know, let's have fun. It's crypto, right? Hey, I want to trade on the other side from you then. Let me know which way you're going. So start today with this. Okay, I could probably go on for hours about this type of stuff. I love this topic. Love it, love it, love it, because I've seen how much of a difference that it makes for me. And I was very frustrated, individual trader, individual investor, until I started to apply some of these techniques and really saw that this is probably 95% of trading is about your mastery of what's between your ears. All right. Any questions? So that went a little longer than I thought it would. But again, you know, you guys get me on a topic like this, I'll talk all day. So somebody's saying BTC pumping. Let's see what we have in the market here. I'll just talk for a couple of minutes. Hey, look at that, up 2.5%. Let's go down to a smaller time frame here. Let's go down to 5 minutes. Look at that go. Woo! Nice. So that looks like news to me, guys. That looks like news. That looks like somebody. Oh, U.S. bills seek to protect cryptocurrency investors from market manipulation. Wouldn't that be nice? Never know what's going to happen here. Yeah, I don't know if that's the reason for this, but that looks like news to me. Looks like news to me. All right, let's see. Let's put this into context here. If we go out to something like a 1 hour chart, yeah, that's not a bad 1 hour candle. That's not a bad 1 hour candle. Again, guys, what my read on this whole thing is, if we go out to the weekly chart, whoa, look at that. If we go out to the weekly chart, this puts it all into context here. So we have a weekly exhaustion here. I expect to see a lot of volatility in the short term and build a, you know, more of a bear flag. You're going to see moves up, moves down until it's ready to move again. Okay. All right, guys. Well, no other questions. I will get out of your way here so you guys can have yourselves a good weekend, and hope everybody is, there we go. What is going on here? Oh, there we go. Okay, we got the music now. Hope everybody's going to have a great weekend. Enjoy your Friday, and I will see you guys again here soon.